Ladies and gentlemen, if you can hear my voice through your ear holes, guess what?
We're back, you guys, and we're so excited.
We are so excited. Babe, who do we got today?
We have my girl, Galadriel Stineman, who I had the pleasure of working on a commercial with last year, and she's an amazing actress with a ton of credits, and we want to hear more about what she's done. And
oh, yeah. I mean, you've seen her on The Middle, The Kids Are All Right, and one of my favorites, I was like, Glee? What? You had a part in Glee? But literally any show you've seen on television, you have seen her. Welcome to the show.
Yes,
Thank you for joining
I love
us.
her so much.
Thanks for having me.
Of course.
And we finally made it happen.
I know. Thank you for being patient with me.
Oh my goodness. Well, you're a busy gal, so it was worth the wait.
Oh, you. I'm just happy to be here. And you live in my neighborhood.
I know, right? So it's so easy. It's like literally
like same parking pass.
Yes.
I was like, I don't even need one.
I love it.
like, I'm good.
I was just thinking that. I was like, man, we live so close.
I
It's
know.
so nice that you were able to stop by, but also it's cool that we do live close and we can connect more. And
I know. I remember when we learned that, we were like, what?
I know.
Oh my gosh, we're neighbors.
Yes, it's so cool. It was so cool.
Now I got so many questions.
Great.
I'm going to start with, tell us about your story. How did life begin for you?
Well, she was born. Just
LA
kidding. How far are you?
Specifically LA life? Or?
You can start from the beginning.
Okay.
And then what led you to LA life?
Okay, so I was born in Cincinnati, Ohio, and we lived there. But then later on, I was raised literally across the river in northern Kentucky, which I've learned over the years a lot of people don't even realize border each other. Like I grew up in Kentucky, but I could walk to Cincinnati, Ohio. So, it was there, which was kind of a weird cultural thing too, because it's like South and then Midwest and,
Oh, interesting.
But yeah, and so I went to school there and I acted in like local stuff. There wasn't much there, but I did like couple little things in theater, and I was a dancer. And
How did you even like think, oh, I'm just gonna try theater? Is your family like an artistic type of family, or you just were always interested in performing?
I mean, the cool thing about my parents is that they were just very much like, you do you, and so it wasn't their thing at all. Although they were both very like into literature, and they were both into the arts. I mean, we went to a lot of stuff growing up. Like a lot of my friends in that time and place didn't really go see like the, visiting Broadway musicals and stuff. And they took me to a lot of museums and that kind of thing. So it was cool.
That's
so I saw
awesome.
it. But I think it was cool in the sense, my mom would say that like, because she's just not girly. She's not, and she'd be like, I don't know where you got that from. And she later told me when I was an adult, she was like, I kept this to myself at the time, so now I get to say it, but I'll never forget the day you came home and said you wanted to be a cheerleader. I felt like a little bit of me died inside.
That's hilarious.
To my parents' credit, whenever I came home with stuff, they kept it to themselves. And
I love that.
Let me do my own thing, because my mom's a nurse, and she's very practical and loves literature like I do, but very like...
reasonable, not a dreamer per se. In that way,
exactly. Like she's just more a matter of fact, and definitely just not her thing. And my dad, he passed away when I was in college, but he was again like very cerebral guy. But he was a writer. That was one of many things that he did.
Like book
but he
writer,
was like, yeah. I mean, he never published anything. I have a lot of his writings, but he wrote a lot. Well, I mean, I think he had some stuff published in like magazines, but more of a hobby of his. And he was an athlete, and he, again, very cerebral. He was like, he played tennis professionally for a long time, but he like went to law school and taught, and just different. But they were all about they'd say they were like, we were just kind of fascinated by you. I think they just like watching me do my thing.
Are you the only child?
Yeah.
That's what I was just thinking.
I didn't know that.
Yeah. And it's funny because they had me in their 30s, but that was like old.
Oh, yeah.
Right.
Here, people are like, are you sure you're old enough to have children?
Yeah, you're 35. Are you sure you're ready?
Yeah, they're like, so young. And I'm like, really? Because I got friends on like number 9 now from like back home.
Totally.
But they were like a lot older than my friends' parents and stuff. And so they definitely parented a little differently. There weren't a lot of Galadriels, I'm named from a character in Lord of the Rings. And
I was just about to ask that.
Yeah.
Literally, I was like, that must be a Lord of the Rings
it's
thing.
totally a Lord of the Rings thing. I mean, like
That's
pre-movies,
I
obviously.
love
But like there weren't a lot of us wandering around Kentucky. That's for
Did
sure.
you ever do any of the horseback riding and stuff? Because they have the...
Oh yeah.
Yeah?
Which is funny because people are like, "Oh, you're from Kentucky, you must ride horses." But like none of my friends did. I
Right.
just like really wanted to.
I relate with that. I'm from Alabama, and people are like, "Did you guys have like indoor restrooms?" I'm like, yes.
Yeah, for
We
us
didn't
it's
have
like,
an
did
outhouse.
you wear shoes?
Yeah,
Did
exactly.
you marry your cousin?
Right.
Which my husband likes to
Yes
make
and
fun
no.
of me a lot, and I'm like, this reflects on you as well, my
Right.
friend.
This looks
'Cause
bad
he's
on
from
you,
California.
husband.
Yeah. But yeah, I did ride horses actually. It was just, when I got to the age of like, my parents were like car or horse. For better or worse, I chose car, and that was
You're
the end
like,
of
no
my
horse and buggy
relationship
for
with
me.
Cosmo. Cosmo was my horse, but that's one of those things. We all have those things like, oh, one day when I got money to blow, like, because it's just an expensive hobby. Unless you know
Totally.
people or like have a lot of room or whatever.
Got a connection.
I think
It's
or
not
that's more
like
family.
you just
practical.
go out and get a guitar and watch some YouTube videos,
Right.
So it's tabled for later.
I randomly saw a video recently of a horse being de-shoed and then re-shoed, and I was like, oh,
shod, I believe is the correct
it's called
term.
shod. My bad. Might be. But what's crazy about that is such an involved process, and I'm like,
Yeah.
man, you own a horse. It's not just like right on the weekends.
No.
They eat a
the
lot.
blacksmith, they got to have the vet like every 6 weeks. You got to
Oh my
turn
God.
them out. Like, it's crazy. I've got a friend who owns a horse out here, and she's just a regular person.
Yeah.
I don't know how she does it. I'm
Does
like,
she like rent her horse out for?
no.
rides or something?
I mean, I think she just came with a horse. So, like,
Yeah.
her husband knew, like, she comes with a horse. That's her thing. Like,
This is what you're signing up for, bud.
She's a speech therapist now, and, like, it's expensive,
Yeah.
especially in LA, but, like, it's her thing, and, like, I get it, But,
love
yeah,
that.
it's, you don't just kinda get a horse.
Right.
You get a
It's
horse.
an all-in thing.
Yeah, like, definitely her first children were horses.
It's like, this is a commitment.
Uh-huh.
One of my dreams in life is I'd love to have like my own like place for monkeys.
What?
You know-
How come I
Monkey
don't know
trouble?
this?
I have never shared this with you.
No.
Did you watch Monkey Trouble as a child?
Yes.
Because that made me want a monkey.
Yes.
for a while.
That and
I don't know what you're
Dustin-
talking about.
Do you know-
Homework. Now that you have a child,
That's
you
right.
owe them to watch Monkey.
Okay, I'm sure he'll make me.
We're catching her up on a lot of movies she missed.
Yeah, I missed a lot because I grew up in a very Spanish-speaking home, so it was
Yeah.
always Spanish-speaking stuff. So I'm like, I don't know what that movie is.
Yeah. And I'm like, what? You've
Yeah,
never
I
seen
know.
it? But I've always had the dream to have like, the only word that's coming to my mind is aquarium, but it's not an aquarium.
Menagerie.
Yes, a menagerie. I want to
It's
have
a great word. I always look for reasons to use that word.
it's so pretty.
It is. You want a menagerie. Of
and I
monkeys.
want monkeys in them. And
Yeah.
I want them to be free, but then hang out with me whenever. I've never told you this.
No,
I've
ever.
She's
always
like,
wanted monkeys.
Now I'm
pretty
rethinking
sure
this.
I'd remember.
I think I'd remember if you wanted to just have monkeys one day, like a lot of them.
A lot. I would love to. They're so fun. I mean, we
They are
basically
cute.
got a monkey right now.
I know.
There
I
was
love
a
Judah.
family friend who got a monkey when I was a kid, and this was around the Monkey Trouble time because I was very invested in the story. And it was like a capuchin, like the ones I had. I remember it was $1,000. This was the 90s. It was more then. And he got it at like a pet store, and the thing was like crazy and would like bite him and tear everything up and all that. And he took it back to the pet store, and they took the monkey back, but they were like, we can only give you store credit. And I remember like he'd come over and say to my dad, like, this was like a pet store that had like fish and like lizards.
What am I
He's
gonna
like,
give her
what am I
like
gonna
1,000
use
lizards?
$1,000 store credit to this pet store on? And I was just
Unreal.
like, man, like I
Their
was very
work, I'm
invested.
sure. I did an episode of Nikki, Ricky, Dickie, and Dawn, and there was a live monkey on set,
No
like a little
way.
one, like a little mini one.
Yeah,
with
I
little
forget
diaper.
the name of those, but they're the like cheeky ones, the one that are easily trained.
I think
but they
that's a capuchin, right?
I'm not
I think
too
that I
familiar.
feel like that's what she might have been called. Her, the owner. Well, I don't know if she was the owner or what, but she was the one that mostly took care of it and would bring him home. But like when I would be like, oh my god, so she would be like kind of like don't.
Like,
Fuss
don't
with the
approach my monkey.
Don't fuss with my monkey, and it's a lot of work apparently. Like just to keep them, and it's just I guess she was just like it's a lot of work.
But if you love them like I do, you invest in it.
I believe it.
And if you
That's
married
right.
me, you
So-
married the monkeys.
Awesome.
You would
Great.
unconditionally love your monkey.
That's right.
I kind of feel that way about a pig. Actually, my husband doesn't
Little
know
piglet?
that. But at some point, like, they always talk about how smart they are.
Yes, they
Back
are.
in the day when they had those like reenactment Rescue 911 shows, there was always an episode about
Oh,
one of
yeah.
those like saving everybody from the fire. Like they'd have the smoke billowing and the pig just looking side to side and then like
Yeah.
waking up the family.
Oh, little piggies.
But then I eat bacon. So.
I know. So I was like, you're like, and pepperoni pizza. Just kidding. No.
Yeah, so
That's the
Okay, so you were doing theater.
Yes.
Oh,
and
yes.
then was that just kind of like a hobby? And then you kind of
Yeah, it was totally a hobby. I mean, it's not like it is now where people can just like go on tape for stuff and all that. Like
Yeah,
my
for
parents
sure.
were pretty cool with me doing whatever was there, but they weren't about to like move me out to LA or anything. And then I did theater in high school, and while I had a lot of fun in that, and I met some really awesome people, and I also kind of got some discouragement. I felt like
You mean
sometimes-
from people or just you were
yeah,
just, okay.
yeah. I mean, some of the people involved in like the theater program, it just had, it's like you have that little microcosm when you're in high school, and it just seems so much bigger than it is. And
Oh,
so
God, yeah.
I sort of got some discouraging messages there. One example is that everybody made the play. Like you might not get a character, but you'd be like
A tree.
townsperson number 5
Yeah.
or a dancer or whatever, And my freshman year of high school, I had like a role. Like that was a big deal as a freshman to have a role. It probably helped that we were doing Annie, and I looked like I was like 8 then.
Oh, I love it.
But then after that, there were 2 years in a row where like I just got left off the list.
You're like,
and I had to like go ask, and I'm so sorry, but like I don't know. Sometimes I kind of suspected there was more of that. Anyway, as a vulnerable teenager, I ended up kind of internalizing that a little bit,
Yeah.
and was like, oh my
How could you
gosh, if I
not?
can't do this on a high school level,
Yeah.
like.
how am I going to go out to Hollywood
Yeah,
or
like
whatever?
that's delusional. If like in this school of 400 people, like it's not going well,
So you knew in high school age that you wanted to come to
I knew
LA.
at like 3. Like I showed up to kindergarten and told them my name was Dorothy, like from the Wizard of Oz. Like I don't know how it was. I knew there was like this show at like 5. It was called I think it was like Dumbo's Big Top or something, and it was like half giant puppets, half people, like Disney Channel thing. And I like wrote them a letter. Like I somehow knew. Like my kids don't know at that age that like shows aren't real. But
Right.
somehow at that age, like I knew, and I like wrote them a letter and asked if I could like be on the show.
You're like, I know this isn't real. This isn't a real world. And I want to be on it.
I would like to be an actor on your show. And I think I wrote like the name of the show and just like dropped it in a mailbox.
Awesome.
But anyway, I got diverted, and I tried to find some. They always say if you can do something else, do it. So in college I studied broadcast journalism, and
No way.
yeah, and I loved writing and stuff. But then like through my internships and that, like I interned at a news station, and I realized like, oh, this is just as difficult to like succeed in,
Right.
So if it's not what I actually want to be doing, I might as well pursue that. And so I was like, I'll just give it 9 months,
And where
when I
were you at
graduated.
school?
There, Northern Kentucky University. It's like 7 miles south of Cincinnati, and it was great because it was a big school-ish. Like now they're Division I, but it was more of a commuter college. So like people who wanted to be involved in stuff could kind of like do anything. So it's like I was able to do the news station, the student government, the student films, and
No
so
way.
I didn't have to be like a theater person to like
Yeah.
audition
You didn't have to
for
be in that like clique of that small world.
Right. Like you could just show up and do stuff, and people would be like, cool, and those people were like, wow, you're kind of good at this. And it was fun. We would do like, the 48-hour film festivals. And
yeah.
they had like a college film festival that a professor at our college started to prepare you for that, where you got like 72 hours,
Yeah.
And so I got a local agent there and did what was there, and was just like, and I was going to go to grad
This was
school.
in
and I was like,
college?
nah, yeah. And I was like, nah. And I was kind of even afraid to tell people because a lot of people in college didn't necessarily know me as an actor. So I was like, I just want to move to LA for a little bit. Like, I just want to see what's out there,
I just
Yeah.
want to explore.
Yeah, like I just like that city. And I did. Like I was one of those weird kids who started when I was like a senior in high school. I subscribed to Los Angeles Monthly. Like
Are you serious?
I got the magazine. Even now someone will be like, yeah, have you heard of this store? And I'll be like, no, but I remember reading about it in my Los Angeles
Right.
Monthly.
Do you
because I
love
would,
LA?
like, dog ear it. I do. I've
Okay.
gone back and forth with it. And I think that part of that is just I've changed so much since I've been here. So it's like I came out as like, a young college grad, and then it's like I became a mom here and I did all that. So it's like I've gone back and forth. But at the end of the day, like I really do love it here. I don't love the prices. It's very expensive.
Of
Oh,
course.
goodness.
But that's because it's popular. So how can you know what I mean? It's sort
Exactly.
of like, well, yeah, everybody wants to live here. But I did always know I wanted to live here. But I thought it was going to be like a 9 month. I was like, I'm going to go out there for 9 months. Like I remember standing at my going away party being like, yeah, I signed a 9 month lease just to like see where it goes next. And I had other like, I was just too insecure about my ambitions to like really
To
say
share.
it.
You didn't want to be like, this is the commitment I'm going to make, and this is a grandiose,
Yeah, to be like, oh, I'm gonna be an
proclamation.
actor, and like I could do that. Like I was sort of, even to my close friends, like they knew, but I was just sort of downplayed it because I didn't want to fail.
Yeah,
And,
that's hard.
Yeah.
What did your mom think?
Oh, my mom was totally supportive. And before my dad passed away, like that was the cool thing too. Like he was totally an education guy.
Yeah.
Like, he had his master's, he had his law degree. He was just a very like almost like savant level of like intelligence. And he went to an Ivy League school and all this. And so I sort of thought that was his idea of success, and I don't remember how old I was, but at one point he said to me, like if you graduated high school and just moved out to Los Angeles, he's like, I would be just as proud of you as anything else. Cause
Wow,
he's like, I
that's
just
so
like, he believed in that. And my mom was totally like now that I look back, I'm like, I was your only child. It was just her and I at that point. And I
Yeah.
just got in a car and left. But like whatever she had going on internally, like she kept, just like when I was a kid, she just let me do my own thing.
Yeah, she wasn't like a little bit died inside. She just like, okay, and she let it die.
Yeah.
She let it die inside, like behind closed doors.
She let me, like, it was all my own experience,
Wow.
And at the beginning I visited a lot, but yeah, I mean, that must have been weird for her to be like, well, there she goes.
Yeah. I remember when I first came, you said you signed a 9 month lease. One of the things that happened with me is I wasn't able to sign a lease beforehand, but whenever I came out, I had like 9 or 10 different places that I thought, oh, these would be great spots. Just in case one fails, I'll have another. All of them were awful.
Oh my God.
Literally either was nothing like the photo or had already booked
Oh my
or
gosh.
had literal gunshots in the walls. And then one that I was like, this one's going to be good. A friend of mine called the local police to say, hey, just is this neighborhood okay? And the police were like, literally anywhere else but there.
Oh my gosh.
Don't move
That's
there.
pretty bad.
Right?
They're saying that. Yeah, dude, it's so hard because
so hard.
my graduation present in college, my mom came out here with me. But like we didn't know anything. So like we stayed by the airport. Like
Oh,
we stayed
wow.
by LAX. We were just like, that seems practical. And then I had met
Westchester.
this girl online to like be a potential roommate.
Yes.
And like she actually turned out not to be sketch, which is really surprising.
Right.
But like she took me around and we looked in like West Hollywood and all these places she wanted to live. Because I was like, oh, and I was just happy to have someone that I might be able to share rent with that seemed cool, you
Yep.
know? And then when I got back, it like fell through. So I moved to Burbank when I first moved out here. Never been there before, but like
It worked out because Burbank's pretty.
No, it was great. And what was handy was the summer before I kind of like interned in one of my agents in Cincinnati in her office. So I'd like work the office and I'd ask her lots of questions and she'd, help me out. And she'd lived out here, but
Oh,
like
cool.
she'd been here a while before. So like then she was like, oh, like you can't live in North Hollywood. Like you'd get shot,
Right.
Which now like we can call it what we want, but that's where we live.
Yeah,
Yeah,
totally.
exactly.
Like
totally.
I'm like, yeah, it's Valley Village, but whatever. And so it was a little outdated, but the consensus was like, if you're gonna move by yourself, and I knew nobody. Like when I'm saying I knew nobody, I knew one guy who'd been at my college for a semester, and we had met twice. I think
So,
our
like,
only connection was that we were
that's
from the
hilarious.
same place, and like he also lived here. And then when I moved here, he was in Santa Monica, which if you know anything about
That's
the
like
demographic
that's
here,
like another state.
It's not like being local. Yeah.
I got to
And
be
he-
there
and
at
he was
9 tomorrow morning.
in Santa Monica.
Yeah.
Yeah. So leave at 7.
Yeah.
But like, to be fair, he was very nice. Like I remember multiple times he would drive up and like, show me, like, I think he felt bad for me, but, I got lucky that I got in Burbank, but even Craigslist and stuff was because I've been here 12 years now. And it's like, everything went so fast. You had to be here.
Yeah.
And so I ended up kind of getting stuck with like the like rent.com, like the big complexes.
Yep.
Oh, yeah.
So I paid so much money for like this studio apartment that I'd never seen. And I had all my ducks in a row. Like you just prove all this income stuff. And like, because I didn't have a job. I had to like show that I had money. And so it's like I had to move all this stuff around. I had everything printed. I drove 4 days, across the country, and I got here.
By yourself?
My boyfriend at the time, actually.
Okay.
Clearly that didn't work out long distance.
Right.
But,
Didn't pan out. But
he was a good road tripper and helpful mover, which is good to know when you're moving across the country. But when we got here, they were like, oh, yeah, no, we have your place moving in 2 days from now. And I was like, no. And they're like, yeah, it won't be ready. I'm like, what? I drove 4 days across the entire United States. Like, I had it where it said it. I was like, you guys messed up. And I remember they gave me,
they didn't have it ready for you.
And they gave me like this like $25 gift card, and we're like,
and
they were like, go get lunch. And I remember being like, I don't know where you do that. I drove from Burbank all the way down to the Beverly Center, like somehow, because I had like a little old like Garmin navigation system. So I'm just like, where is the nearest Chipotle? Yeah, I was like the top, like where's the nearest Chipotle? And it took me down there. And I remember just being
in Kentucky would have been like 15 minutes, but here it's like 45.
Oh my gosh. No, I think it took like an hour and a half. And I remember being like, the apartment better be ready by the time we get back. And I remember just thinking like, this does not bode well. Like, I think the universe is like resisting me moving here.
You're like, how is this happening on the first day?
Yeah.
So you get here, nobody except a rando from college.
Yep.
What is the first few steps you take as far as your career? You moved out here secretly for yourself. You're like, I'm doing this for at least 9 months, or did you have it?
No, I think I was like 9 months will be my, like, I'll at least get a good sense of whether it can go longer. I wasn't like, I'm going home at 9 months, but I was like,
reassess.
I might. Yeah.
Or assess.
Well, and then financially, I knew I could do it for 9 months. It's an expensive place to live. So when I first got here, well, I didn't know what to do. And when I had come out and visited, there was like supposedly an agent who I knew nothing about, that my agent in Cincinnati had connected me with, that like I could meet with. So that I was like, that'd be so great if I had an agent before I got there.
Oh yeah.
And all this. And then while I was here, she was like, yeah, they actually changed their mind and they don't want to meet with you. And I remember again being like, that is a bad sign. This is not good. Which now I know, like any agent that's really interested in signing you before you get to Los Angeles, unless you've like done some things, like maybe under different circumstances, you also might not be interested in them.
Right.
But at the time I was just like, what is telling me that I should be there? And so that first like month or two, man, was like bleak because I knew nobody. I remember my Wi-Fi didn't get hooked up for a long time. So I would sit at like Togo's, the sandwich shop, like right by my apartment. And I would go to the library all the time and just pull out like the hard copy of like Backstage and just like flip through the back. I joined at the time, there was this organization called the Actors Network out here that's now just online. But then it was like a physical place, which was great because you went and it was all just like learning the business of it and bonding with other people that were like take charge, and they would educate you on the business side and bring in like casting directors and stuff, but not like an audition type place, but like literally just to learn about the business and start like goal groups and all this stuff. Like it was really actually a cool thing that.
And how did you find out about that whenever you got here?
Well, my agent, the one who'd been back in Cincinnati, who'd lived out here for a while, had known the guy who started it. And so she just passed along his information.
Awesome.
Now that I look back, there were definitely signs that like pushed me in good directions. And she was great. Her name's Kat. I'm actually still in contact with her because every now and then she brings groups of actors out here to like see LA and meet with people and stuff, and I'll teach a class for them when they come.
That's so great.
Awesome.
Yeah, but like, and she connected me to, she was basically like, I haven't been here in a long time. Here's all I know. And here's like 5 people that I know that like live there. And a lot of them really like were generous. And, a couple of them I'm still in contact with today. But I
think that's such an important part out here that you can easily, because LA has so many people, it's easy to get lost in those people.
Yeah.
And I think having a network or trying to build a network of people is so important, just to like feel like you're a part of something, because even the work as an actor can be so isolating sometimes.
Yeah. Well, and I think it's also good practice for when you do become an actor, because at that point, it was so hard for me to pick up the phone and like call those people because I was like, what do I have to offer? Like, why would they want to get coffee with me? Like, I just got here. I have like hardly any training.
Yeah.
Do you know? And there were actually a couple people, like one of my college professors referred me to, I think it was like a writer of 30 Rock or something. that I never called because I would just pick it up and I'd be like, I can't, like,
What am I gonna say?
Like,
what am
I
I
can't
gonna
gather
say?
myself
Like,
to
I have
call.
nothing. Like, if we have coffee, like, what am I? You know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think it would like all of that was really good practice because like you just can't be scared to hear no, you know?
yeah.
And I still kind of struggle with that. But early on, it was like I was only okay with like asking questions where I already knew what the answer was going to be.
Oh yeah.
And like you just got to put yourself out there a lot in this business and in this town. And so like I think that was really good practice. And you know, a lot of those people ended up being helpful. And it's like maybe I did have something I could offer. Like I remember one guy, he and his wife ran like a community theater kind of thing, and they needed somebody to like take tickets one time, and I was like, please, like, gosh, give me something to like
give back
because they and with him it was less professional advice and more that like he included me in their family stuff, you know.
That's awesome.
Which was cool. And then there was another woman who worked at Warner Brothers, like on the business side of things at the time, who like had me meet her there for lunch, showed me around the lot, and like eventually helped me get the vouchers that I needed left to become SEG eligible.
Yeah.
Awesome.
And then like it's so funny because like later she's so cool, but like later she, after having this very successful business career there, retired and then went back to acting.
Oh,
And so
awesome.
like
No
that's her thing
way.
now. And so, you know, I'm always like, hey, I'm around, like if you want, you know, if you want to pay it back. But like you just, so I just try to remind myself like it's cyclical and it's okay to accept from people even if you don't really have anything to give them at that moment, because maybe later you will,
I
or
think
maybe
it's-
you give it to someone else, maybe someone gave it to
Yeah.
them. But you know, it's just when you're really type A and organized, like you got to just let go of control of stuff, you know.
I think it's also like finding that, like that balance of, which I hate the word balance, but it's kind of like finding that way to do that without being obnoxious, which you're not. It's funny, like, you know, we talk about it all the time, and I think we have a really hard time reaching out to people to like asking for favors or not even, I guess that's what we see it like. It's asking for favors. It's like, I don't know what it is. It's this thing, and I've been doing this for a really long time.
I think it, you know, just to put it into words, the feeling, I think it's kind of what you were saying, where you feel like you have nothing to offer the other person. Whereas, so you're like, I don't want to ask, you know, this, that, or the other, because what are they going to gain from the conversation from me? And I don't want to be annoying.
Right.
You know, it's funny because I used to work at a gym, and this girl had come to work as well. Like she had just started. So I was working the desk sometimes, but I was also a trainer there. And and this is where I think you know, when you see certain people and it leaves a bad taste in your mouth and you're like, I never want to be that. It was one of those boutique-y type of exercise places where like writers would come, actors would come, casting directors would come to work out. And she would like IMDb like the whole roster during her shift.
Okay.
And then literally be like, oh my God, so like I saw your episode of la 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 la, or and then it was so like it was just so loud.
Yeah.
And again, like
Well, and I think that's also, you know, you can feel people taking on that.
Yeah.
Like, I think it's like what I've learned is the distinction is if you go and you don't ask the person for anything. Like, you're just like, could I just have some of your knowledge and experience, whether it's someone who has stuff to offer you or not? Because what I've realized is like, if people want to give you something, they will offer it.
Right.
And
True.
unless it's like a very specific thing that it may not have occurred to them that, you know, you see like, oh, maybe I should ask. But like what happened was like, especially early on, a lot of those people, I really did need the information. And maybe it helped me that I was more insecure, because some people come out here with loads of confidence and like more power to them. I don't know where they get it from.
Yeah.
But, I mean, to be fair, it takes a lot to get you out here. So
Right.
for some people, it's just that self-knowledge. Like, I am just, you know, it's my place. They've been waiting for me. Cool. But not having that, I think, was helpful. And so a lot of people offered me things. You know,
Yeah.
a lot of people
You had favor.
offered to help. Even like the woman who helped me get my SEG eligibility. Like, I found myself in a pickle. It's a long story, but I thought I was SEG eligible. I wasn't. I had an agent by then, and they were like, wait, what? You're not. And I was like freaked out. And I kind of just sent out an email like to everyone in my life professionally in LA, like, here's my situation. If anyone has any advice or leads, like, I will do whatever is needed.
Yeah.
But the quicker I could take care of this, the better. So please, like, let me know, you know? And then that woman offered that, she was
Yeah.
just like, hey, I don't know if you're open to whatever they have, but I know a second AD on a show. I could see if maybe he could bring you in for some extra work, and I was just like, oh my gosh, yes, like please, And I remember one of those days was background in a spin class, and I had to do like 12 hours of like
Oh goodness.
spinning,
Oh,
which
girl.
which helped with all of that like residual Catholic guilt, I felt, because I was like, well, I'm earning it, like this is not a free
You're like,
ride
listen, this
today.
ain't free. I'm sweating. My legs are sore.
Yeah, I was just like, I am earning that voucher. But I think that's the difference, is if you're not
Yeah,
like,
totally.
here's what I need from you. If you're just like, here's my situation, advice, help, anything, appreciate it, happy to pay it back.
Totally.
And I feel
love
like
that.
a lot of people like that too. You end up banking it other places in the universe, and maybe to a fault now, I have a tendency to like give away things that I charge for in other areas of my life,
Yeah.
maybe because of that. But I do believe that like, the bank is universal. So like if you pay in a lot, it's okay to cash in sometimes.
Totally.
I try to pay in more than I cash out,
That's awesome. So you kind of did all that. Like, do you feel like it took you a while to get your stride? Like, as far as like, or do you feel like obviously it's always work, right? Like getting an agent and then you get another agent, or sometimes you stay with the same one if it works out, or manager. And do you kind of feel like it took you, because you said you've been here for 12 years. So like, when do you feel like you started kind of getting your stride as a working actor, or to the point where, did you ever need a day job? Did you end up at some point like, you didn't need a day job anymore, and like you quit your day job you know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Well, I got lucky in the very beginning, and I did end up with kind of a head start. And in some ways, I sort of had the opposite problem that a lot of people have, where I got a lot of opportunities that I wasn't quite ready for, I think. Because so the best thing that happened was that agent, when I came and visited, didn't want to meet with me, because then when I got out here, there was someone else that my local agent had just sent she just sent cold emails to all these, places.
Nice.
And was like, she was also trying to get agents to come there to do like workshops and stuff.
Yeah.
And then she would kind of like plop me, and be like, also, I know this actress will be moving out there. I don't know if you'd be interested in meeting with her. And like no one responded except at the time it was because I looked really young, which honestly is the easiest way to break in out here, because I looked like I was 14, in my early 20s. And it was the youth department at Abrams at the time.
Yeah.
And they were like, well, if she moves here, like, we'll let her audition, like, let her come in. And I was like, wow, okay. Like, I don't know what my odds are, and now it's crazy, because I know like a lot of people who had a lot of luck that like never made it in those doors. And I think it was just like the right day. Everything was fine. I don't know. So the first time I called, of course I had to like work up the courage to call.
Right.
I also like am just terrified of phone calls anyway. Like my husband knows, like even if it's like somebody messed up on a bill, like I have to like work myself up to like make a phone call. I don't know what it is, but there's just something about phone calls that I'm like, just text me, gosh.
I honestly struggle with that too. I have no idea
I get
why.
so much phone anxiety. Or if like people just call to talk, like it makes me nervous. I'm like,
Yeah. What did I do wrong?
What happened?
Yeah.
Is there something you need?
I
well, and then when you
honestly-
become a parent, you're also like, I can't talk on a phone.
Hello.
Like,
I'm busy.
There's so many excuses.
Kids are
that happen.
screaming.
Yeah.
That's so funny you say. I'm actually like currently working on that.
Yeah.
Working on like, no, answer that phone call.
And it's always fine. Like
Yeah,
it's always
totally.
fine. Or you pick up the
Yeah.
phone to like take care of, like I put off like making doctor's appointments and stuff. It's not even like a rational thing. It's just like
Dentist?
it's like 5 minutes to call, but I don't know. I don't know.
She'll literally will wake up and she'll be like, "Hey, can you call the dentist today?" And I'll be like, "Yeah, okay, I'll do it tomorrow. I'll plan it tomorrow."
Yeah,
like, it's
it'll
like
be
an
at this time,
event.
like before lunch. Like you,
Like, what is the deal?
What's
I
up
don't
with
know.
us?
It's not rational.
No,
I don't know
totally.
what it is. It's just a weird thing. I'm better than I used to be. Way more neurotic about like I used to have more like social anxiety and stuff related to all that. Now it's mostly isolated to that. But so it didn't help that the first time I called them, they like never called me back or like
Right.
anything. And I really had to work it up to call again because
Oh,
like
man.
in my previous life that was a no, you
Right,
know.
totally.
But I was like, no, they said. So I'm going to call back.
Right.
So I called back with like, and it's funny because on a phone call, I can act very well. So I remember being like, I'm calling to schedule my,
Yeah.
rather than being like, they said this. I was like, hey, I am calling to schedule my
meeting.
meeting. And I did. Oh my gosh, I was so nervous. I
bet
remember
your
being
heart was
like,
racing.
oh my gosh. And
Yeah.
I remember I drove down to the agency, which was so far away the day before my meeting because I was so nervous about not knowing where it was or how long it would take
I
or anything
love
like that.
it.
Like I wanted to see it, and I didn't know what to bring. I remember going to like Barnes and Noble and getting like a monologue book, and I had like
Yes.
a comedic one and a dramatic one, you know, and just like clueless. And I went in and I remember just being like terrified, and I did them both, and they were kind of like unreadable. And I remember being like, and this is my reel, and it had like, you know, my short films or whatever.
Yeah.
And they didn't even watch it. I remember they just straight up like threw it in the trash, and they were like, you don't have a reel. That's not a reel. And I was like, okay. And like
It's me acting, so whatever you want to call it.
And this said a lot about the type of person that I was. I was like, so here's the list of everything I've done in the last 30 days related to my acting career. And it was like, I mean, normal stuff like training, but it would also be like, read and annotated the first 50 books of Sanford Meisner's book. And like, like it was so like, I don't know. I think I was just like trying to do anything. And I was like, and here's the list of the things I will be doing in the next 30 days, you know?
Awesome.
You're like, I am serious,
And
you guys.
I remember that just like they were, it was like that, like sound effect, like they were like,
the record scratch.
what is this person? And I was just like, and I remember they laughed and they were like, you're great. We love you. Like, we want to sign you. And I was like, oh, okay. And they were like, and in fact, let's walk you down to commercial. Like, I feel like they're going to want to sign you too. And they signed me across the board that day.
Wow.
And I will never forget just the like 5 seconds standing outside, like getting on the elevator, just being like, what just happened, you know?
Amazing.
And then they made fun of me. So I was repped by them. The good luck kept going in the sense that later they were the ones who started the youth department at Paradigm. So they took me to Paradigm with them.
Awesome.
And I was with them.
Those agents in particular.
Yeah, those two agents way too long because they were still youth agents. And I was with them until a few years ago.
You're like, okay, I think we need to move.
Yeah, there was a time when I think everyone was like, guys, I think we can all agree this has been a great ride. But like, you've been an adult for a long time now, and you even look like one now. And so that was great. And then my manager, I had a bad manager, just a bad, I mean, just, I won't even go into it, but the stereotypical, you're new, you're just like, you want to work with me? Great, cool. And it was a bad experience. And to the point where like I had this contract that was so bad, but I
gosh.
didn't know it, that somebody helped me out with who knew the business really well and took me under his wing. He was so great. And he was just like, oh, this is not good. He's like,
Oh, man.
do you mind if I use this if I take out the names and stuff and use it as an example for actors for like what not to sign?
You're
I
like,
was
oops.
but he helped
Wow.
me, helped me get it dissolved and all that. I'll never forget meeting her at a coffee shop.
Oh,
Being
God.
like, because she wouldn't sign things and being like, I need you to sign this dissolution of it, whatever, because there was
Wow.
no out clause in it. And I remember like she did this big scene at Priscilla's, the coffee shop.
Oh,
Remember?
girl, yes.
And she comes in and throws a contract at me and like leaves. And I'm just like, people are looking at me. And it wasn't even my contract. It was some other client's. And I was like, this just says a lot. But anyway.
You're like,
Oh
and the
my
Oscar
gosh.
goes to.
Yeah, I was like, okay, this is bad. And I was worried because she was just like, she did the typical, not you're never going to work in this town, because that would actually like give me some merit, is the sense that like maybe like I had offended her and she would make sure to block me.
Right.
She was worse. She was just like, I can't even distinguish you from my other clients. Like, you just want to be like other people. You have no identity of your own. You're so like, it was bad. I remember just being like,
gosh.
She sounds like that
Sounds like a-
lady.
and then my agents at the time were
I'm
like,
sure it's
kind of
not
had a
her, though.
relationship with her. And I remember being like, hey, like, is that going to affect us? And they were like, no, not at all. But we should bring up the fact that you should really be getting more callbacks. And like, I was like, oh gosh. Like, I was like, I barely just got here and it's already like,
You're like, and now we're
it
having
was
the
like
callback conversation.
high low. You know,
Oh,
'cause
but now
this-
that we have you,
this
here's
was,
our problem.
Yeah. And that
Oh,
was
God.
within, I don't know, like 5 or 6 months of moving here.
I think that's the biggest lesson.
my
the
gosh,
highs
girl.
and the lows are,
Oh
are
my gosh.
legit.
Yeah, it's so funny. This actress that I know, she posted an interview she did the other day, and like she said, like, I always thought it was like a ladder and it's like a jungle gym. And I was like, oh my gosh, that's such a perfect metaphor. It's like there's no up and down. But fortunately, right away after that, I met my current manager, who I've been with now for over a decade.
Awesome.
And it feels like since I got here, because that was just 6 months after I got here. But his name's Kurt Patino. And like,
I feel like I know that name.
maybe. I mean, he's been around. He's got some great clients. And at the time he was with a company, and I followed him around, and now he's got like his own shop. And he's got like a small roster, but it's been great. And so, he's like family now.
So how did you make that connection amidst all of this?
Well, I think it was that same thing. I made people aware of what was
Going on with your crazy, batshit crazy manager.
Yeah, but I didn't really ask for things except help, like, and
direction.
So, the founder of the Actors Network, his name's Kevin West. He's amazing. He just got voted onto the SAG, board or whatever, which makes perfect sense because most of what I know about the business I had learned from him early on. One of those generous guys. That's why he started the Actors Network. He was like, I know things. Wouldn't it be cool if there was a place where like other people could learn those things instead of having to figure them all out by themselves?
I remember the Actors Network.
Yeah. And so it was great. So anyway, he was the one who helped me with like the contract stuff with the old one. And then he was like, I really do think like you have something special and you have this really good work ethic. And he was like, there's a manager he didn't. It was very professional about it all. He didn't even mention this until that ship had sailed, and he was like, "Now that crazy lady is gone, who I saw crossing the street like a year ago. Like I was crossing and she was in a car, and I was just like, if she remembers me, she's probably gonna kill me." But fortunately, I don't think she did remember me. But yeah, and so he set up the meeting, and it was really, really fortunate because I think that. He'd asked me to like read something for him anyway. At this point, I had not worked yet, but I was fortunately by then SAG eligible. But just days before I met with him, I booked my first job out here, which was really cool. That's to be like, to have the meeting set up, but like him not know that and me be like, well, I just booked this movie, so I'm going to go fly and film that. So I think, maybe that also helped too, that he was like, oh, you look even more appealing,
Exactly. You're
work
working.
begets work. Yeah.
Yeah. But when I looked not like TV 16 when I moved here. I looked 16. Like,
oh, wow.
I looked so young. Like I would audition for 14, 15 all the time. And so when you get into big auditions, like big films, you know what I mean? Because at that age, they don't expect people to have credits. And like, it's painful now because, now I have tons of training and all that and experience. And it's like, I wish I could go back because there were a lot of opportunities that I just was not experienced enough to, really take advantage of.
So did you just kind of start like at some point? I'm sure then you started just taking classes and
I took like a couple classes when I first got here, but I just didn't have enough training. Like, I didn't realize. Time. And so I would do really well in the auditions that were very like close to me because I was I had a lot of natural talent. I was very good at being authentic, but even people with natural talent, if you give them a situation they can't relate to, like you now have cancer, 2 legs and are in outer space. Like, or how can you just be like, I'm just going to like pretend that's me,
Right.
I'm just going to step into that.
Yeah. Or it's like horror film or you like throw a dialect in or something. And it's just like, man, I got some cool opportunities then that I just wasn't ready for. And I would get a lot of callback. I mean, that's the nice thing is when you're playing that young, your competition also usually doesn't have all the best training. So the bar is lower. But yeah, I think we all have that like, oh, if only I'd known then what I know now. But I don't want to go stirring that pot too much because, other things happened like in life that I wouldn't want to go back and change.
Right.
Like a family.
Like a family. Mm-hmm. Yeah, because that happened pretty soon after I got here too. Atticus was born around the 3-year anniversary of me living in LA.
Wow.
Yeah. So while still playing 16. So that was
right. All the pregnant shows of like teenage pregnancy.
Yeah, they didn't want real pregnant people. It's funny because you and I met in a commercial where we were pregnant, although you were real pregnant.
I was actually pregnant.
I was fake pregnant. And I remember being so like, yeah, because I never, ever, ever, ever I have 2 kids through either of my pregnancies worked. I barely auditioned, but like I never worked when I was pregnant, except before I showed. And so I remember because there were all these actually pregnant people at the callback, after I had like a second of guilt, like, oh, one of them should book it. And I was like, no, you know what? It's my turn. I spent all those months off work.
Yeah. You're like, I had to.
I can wear a fake belly.
You're like, bring that silicone
That's
or
right.
whatever
I'd be
it's
like,
made
this
out
is
of.
my reward, you know?
Yes.
Oh, yeah. I remember that squishy belly they ordered off Amazon. Did you know you can order fake pregnant bellies off Amazon?
I did.
There's so much that you can get like the next day.
I know.
It's like, where is
It was
all
crazy.
this stuff?
I was like, I don't know what memory bank that needs to be stored in, but now I know.
Now you have it.
It has
Put it on a
ruined
list.
the Amazon thing has ruined so many online orders for me where I'm like, oh, that's going to take 3 days to get here. I'll see if it's on Amazon.
Yeah.
How crazy
Next
is that?
day.
And even worse, so, my youngest son just turned 3 and he's potty training. And it was like last weekend, it was my older son's birthday and he had preschool the next day. And I was like, oh my gosh. And since he had just started potty training, the kid owned 3 pairs of underwear. And like at preschool now that he is, they're like, send him in his undies. And I was like, oh no, they're all dirty. Like I just send them. I prime now that. Like I had underwear delivered to my house in 2 hours on a Sunday.
That's a thing?
Yeah,
That's
I literally,
amazing.
and they were Cars, like his favorite
Amazing.
movie. Like I was just
like, yes.
I was like, I'm just going to see if they're on there. Like, to be fair, it'll probably end up eventually being the downfall of society. Like this
Totally.
is how they get us.
Right.
Isn't it always though?
I know, but I was just like, right now I don't care because there's an 8-pack of Cars toddler underwear being delivered to my house in 2 hours.
And guess what?
Amazing.
I ain't mad about it.
That's what the Prime Now is what they're gearing the drones up for.
Oh no.
Oh, girl.
Yeah. They were going to be in effect. Well, they were going to go through testing this past 2018, but literally like in the small areas they were testing, people were shooting them out of the sky.
What?
That was probably Kentucky.
Yeah, totally. Totally. Or Alabama.
They're like, what's that bird?
Yeah, Kayla, that's my privacy. And so they're actually eventually going to have drones be able to take your stuff in almost everything.
Like that sounds convenient and terrifying.
Totally.
At the same time.
Yeah.
Totally.
I'm not even behind the like self-driving cars. Like at this point, I'm like, oh no, because then what? Then I'm at their mercy. I'm like,
Right?
oh, like,
Then they can take you
I'm
wherever.
gonna
Drive
be
you
that
off a
old lady-
bridge.
That old lady, they'll be like, she still drives her car, and I'll be like, yes, I do.
And I'm proud
in
of
control.
it.
I'm in control. But what's crazy is even the new cars that are not self-driving can have like auto cutoffs. That police can go in and be like, ding.
It was like no more high-speed chases.
Totally.
That'll be like a thing like Wild West movies. It'll be like, oh, back in the day of like high-speed chases.
Right?
That's insane.
And what's kind of
Wow.
crazy to think about, a good tangent into conspiracy theory. It's like the thought of that could be a positive. Like, oh, we're going to keep people from high-speed chases. We're going to cut off their vehicle if they're endangering other people.
Could be one step away from Handmaid's Tale.
Exactly. Or
what
that.
if we decide that we don't like that
Careful
person?
what you wanna
Or no
censor.
one's allowed to leave the country.
Exactly.
Starting now. I
Oh,
know.
check-
I'm reading the sequel right now to Handmaid's Tale, and it's between watching the show and then reading. It's just like, I mean, they purposely want it to seem close to home. And
Oh,
they
totally.
Do,
Of
they do a good
course.
job. You're like, oh, we're just 5 steps away. Step 1 tomorrow.
what?
You know.
We can do
We're
this
not that
all
far.
night.
We're not that far. Yep.
So so the thing that interests me is it sounds like you have the fear of the phone, but to have a confrontation, and I quote it because it's not your confrontation, but the lady who seems so confrontational, the manager that you
Yeah.
had. So are you able to handle confrontation well, and it's just a
person?
phone thing, or was that a kind of a barrier?
Yes, I think it's probably one reason why I didn't keep going with improv too. Like I like to be able to prepare for things and feel like I have control over it, especially if there is a variable like a crazy lady. Like I want to, like I win. Like I would probably have been a really good attorney. Like
Yeah.
I will provide evidence. Like I learned early on in life, I think in like 4th grade, that's how I got a dog, because I like was really specific about the kind I wanted. So I had like, the poster board where I pointed to things, and I had like articles I'd pulled from the library.
Like, I
about,
know what
like,
I'm
the
signing up for.
benefits of dog ownership, this breed over this. And it wasn't really, I don't think, my case that usually won. It was just like my relentlessness,
Yeah.
where it was just easier eventually to say yes to things like that because I could go for months, So
She
like,
is not going to stop.
so I often win by using information. Like that's how
Yeah.
and so like in that case it was easier. And I remember like I had the papers, I had the paper trail of like emails of this, of
you
that.
were prepared.
Yeah. And so I'm good at presenting a case. So that kind of stuff, I don't like it. I don't like discord.
Right.
I like harmony. I like things to be resolved. So I don't like things in progress. I'm okay when they're done. But like I'm the type of person too where it's like, if I have an issue, like let's do it now.
Yeah.
Like even if I have to sleep on it, I'm like that's just a longer fester. I like to like move through things, move on to the next thing. I am not passive aggressive. My husband told me, he goes, no, you're just aggressive. But he's so funny. But there is some truth in that where it's like, I'm either going to say this thing is not worth it. And therefore I am not going to attach things to it. Like I'm done with it. Or I'm like, okay, real quick, let's just stop and like sort this thing through. So in that case, like, I mean, I probably terrified her because I came at it like it was like a legal case. Like I had everything, and I find that that's my go-to because it's, one, it's been effective. Right. But two, it's like emotions can get the better of you, but facts are facts. Facts speak
I was
for
going to say,
themselves.
it sounds like, it sounds like you can tap into, because I think a lot of times with situations, especially being actors or just even if you're not an actor, I think it's easy to go into the emotion part of it and like make it an emotional thing.
Right.
Right.
When we were doing premarital counseling, a lot of the times, the therapist that we were talking to would kind of be like, okay, you need to go into like your adult brain of like, this is not an emotional decision. You have to like lift facts.
Yeah.
And I think that kind of, it's hard if you're an emotional person or if you're like but I think that there's something to that because it's almost like you can't argue facts.
Right. Well, and that's
I mean, I guess
thing,
you can, but that's
too.
not
It's like
wise.
I realized early on, like you don't change people's minds emotionally.
Right.
You never change somebody's minds
very
emotionally.
true.
Because even if like you have like a good case, like how often has someone come at you and you've been like, actually, you know what? Because like even if you start to know it, then you become more defensive.
Right.
Totally.
Especially if you have something to lose. And so I realized like it doesn't matter if I'm like, you made me feel this way. You did, like no one cares.
Right.
But facts are a thing where it can be like, you know what, you might feel that way, but this is just the facts.
This is
like
what happened.
And then
Right.
like people have to, they can't deny that. There is you don't need people to agree with you because you just,
Is
you
what
have
it
that.
is.
Right. And so, like I said, my dad was a lawyer, like had that. So maybe that I just realized like, and there's comfort in that. Like I don't have much of a math brain. It's just not my area, but I'm like I love grammar. Like I used to copy edit. Like I have friends who I've just copy edited their scripts for like fun. Like it's like Sudoku or crossword puzzle or something, but there's some comfort in knowing like, these are the rules.
Structure.
Yeah. And it's always
that's
the same
awesome.
and it applies. It's like kind of comforting. There's no variables. So, I mean, especially in our business where it's all variables, I feel like sometimes we
God.
just cling to like whatever structure we have.
The thing that's like the most secure or that we can control for a little bit.
And I think
which-
something that we both share in this like variability is actors married to actors.
Yeah.
So like,
Which is either amazing or crazy.
right.
Yeah.
And it can go through both.
Yeah.
The ups and downs of the crazy life. We think about our day-to-day life and how different almost every day can be.
Yeah.
It's like clinging on to something that's like stable is a difficult process. Is that something that you guys understand or connect with as well?
Yeah. I mean, I think it helps in a lot of ways because this is such a weird life that like there are those times when I don't envy the partner. I'm very happy with my partner, but I envy the dynamic of like, oh, your spouse is a banker. It's so nice. Like,
There's some consistency there, even if it's not like the most.
like you've got to, what your minimum is. You know what I mean?
Yes.
Totally.
And we don't have that, but we also, have become kind of a team and that like we really keep each other going. We have all of that, but like, I think, I mean, we had kids very early in our relationship, about less than a year after we met, we had our son. So like, we didn't have a lot of time and we were young. So it's like, we didn't have a lot of time, like being just adults in a relationship in this business for me to compare, but I would imagine that would be much easier because, you know, when you have kids, like you depend on each other so much for like time or
especially if you don't have like a lot of help.
Childcare. Yeah. Yes. And it's like, we're fortunate that we have as parents here, but like they work they work from home. So it's like, we're not going to ask them to just watch the kids for fun. It's only going to be like if we're in a bind or, you know, it's when they're off or something. Like his dad is awesome in the sense that like my husband and I like being in the same acting class, and he'll come over on the night we go to acting class.
Which
and,
is
like, watch the kids.
With who again? I think you told me this.
Stan Kirsch is where
you guys are both there right now.
That's where we're studying right now.
Oh, no way.
I mean, I've kind of been all over town, you know, and I teach and stuff too.
I'd want to chat a little bit about that.
Yeah.
Too.
Yeah. And so, you know, I've been a lot of really great places, but that's where we're at now. We have a lot of friends that are there, and it's cool because he comes over and he, you know, holds down the fort for us. But like inevitably we have busy times, we have slow times, and it's really hard. I think like just this past like month, I've been working a ton, and then that means there's a lot of childcare that falls on him. And it's like, you know, you can either pay someone to give you time, but if you don't really, you know, if it's just to get your own stuff done or whatever. And so I think we have a hard time finding that balance. And, you know, it's just tough because it's like, as it is, you have to throw your own life out the window when they are like, you have an audition tomorrow, or can you make it to this, or you're working for the next week or whatever. But then your partner has to also, and I am an over apologizer, you know, like, I'm so sorry. I'm sorry about this. I'm sorry about this. Like to a point where it's just like noise. And Kevin can be kind of like still waters that run deep. So I'm trying to like figure out if he's mad, you know?
You're like, are you mad? Because you don't look mad.
And I mean, you know, we've been married for a long time now. So we do have that shorthand where I can be like, is this one of those times where like you're annoyed, but you just think I might cry, so you're not going to say anything? Because like, can we just like skip to that part at the end, like where you know,
we just get this and resolve this, great?
Yeah, you know, like we've had years of like the other stuff, so it's better, but it's tough.
Yeah,
you know, it's tough.
We are more newly married. I mean, it's going to be 3 years in December.
Yeah,
and also, you know, we got married in December. The following September, I was pregnant. And the following June, we had Judah. And now we're like on number 2.
Yeah, I know.
And I think it's one of those things where we are kind of like trying to navigate those waters of like good years and bad years. But also now we're both actors. Yeah. So it's like, does one of us go get a job because we don't know when the next job is coming, but we also got to make health insurance. But we also like sometimes, you know, there's weeks where I have a lot of auditions and then he might not have as many, or he has a few. And then he's like, I feel like I've been like, I don't know exactly what your phrase was.
No, like Judah, our son Judah would start going, Dada. And she would be like, he's saying your name now.
Like,
and I'm like, well, yeah, I'm with him all the time.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, I'm sorry, we only have one car. And like, I had to like, you know, so, and it's also finding that new normal because.
Well, and then it's not even a normal because the minute you get the hang of that, it changes again. And then you get prepared. You're like, okay, so when this and this and this, and then it's never relevant because either the kids have changed and they're on to something else, or your life changes, or, you know, so it's just like, you know, people are like, so do you think you guys would do that? And I just laugh anytime anybody asks us questions about our future. Cause I'm like,
we don't know.
I don't even know what next month is going to look like. And God forbid when they like ask me about like volunteering at my kid's school. Cause I'm just like, I'm like, cause I think sometimes, I mean, you know, we live in an industry neighborhood. So like they probably get it more than most, but they're kind of like, are you a working mom or like a stay-at-home mom? Like they don't quite. Yeah. And so I'm like, here's the thing. I have lots of free time. However, it's often not consecutive, and I don't know when it's going to be until it's currently happening. So if I sign up for stuff, you're going to hate me. Maybe I just show up sometimes.
Yeah,
totally. How about and then also because you also teach, right? Do you teach kids or do you teach, but you also do coaching, like self-tape, like adults, or is it just children or?
You know, everybody. Awesome. Everybody. I mean, today I worked with 3 clients. Which is usually like an average day, I would say, ranging in age from probably 16 to 30.
Okay.
You know, I don't work with many children. I have like a handful of clients, I would say, that are like under 12.
Okay.
But mostly like teens and up. And yeah, so I've been teaching for the Michael Wilson studio for
That's okay.
about 6 years, long time. And that started out slow. You know, I was a student there, and Michael was a great teacher and like mentor to me. And eventually was like, hey, do you maybe want to start like trying some coaching on the side? And so it's like I'd have like one client for a little bit. We'd see how that would go, you know, and then it just kept building. And at that point, I mean, I was the low man on the totem pole. So I would kind of just get like the really young ones or the really inexperienced ones or the ones that were like at a really inconvenient time. You know what I mean? It was like slim pickings.
Midnight.
Yeah. Or like the big challenges, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But like, that was cool because I was up for it. And
I love that.
I learned. And it's just like acting in the sense that, you know, there's definitely skill involved. And
you mean in the coaching aspect of it? Oh yeah, I'm sure.
And so like early on, I was still able to be really successful with people, but there's the efficiency of it. Just like early on in acting, sometimes it's like, if you give me the time, like I can get there. But like when you get technique and training, like you can be efficient. You can be like, I need 2 hours and I'll be ready to roll. You know what I mean?
Totally.
Like, and so with the coaching now, it's like, I know, like I can look at the material and look at the person and be like, here's how long we need, you know, which is helpful. And so now I do it a lot, which is great because it's just grown and it's been its own thing. Like I know that it's there if I ever want to grow it, you know, on my own, but I haven't.
Right.
It's only been through referral and stuff, which is cool. And so I do coach and I teach for them. And then I have some, I call them my indie clients, you know, just like the people that I've gotten on my own. And then I occasionally will teach like workshops out of town or I do a lot of like one day things when people come through town. There are agents and stuff that come in from different places in the country or that are here that'll be like, hey, do you know, and so it's fun, you know.
That's so great.
And then I teach a class weekly, which has been cool to just, and a lot of my students have been like around for a while. Like I've had them for a while now. So it's just been kind of fun to have our own, you know, like creative area, and I've had them long enough to like see them grow, and
That's so cool.
they can be my guinea pigs, you know, like right now that you know, I've done so much with them because I'm always like, I don't believe anybody can get everything they need from one teacher or one place. And there are people, there are a lot of people who are like of the guru mentality when it comes to teaching, and I'm like, you know, as an actor, I've always been like, I'm going to study everywhere and then pull what I need when I need it. And not just when it comes to acting, but when it comes to improv and Alexander technique and, you know, sitcom
on
and all
camera
of that.
and scene study.
Yeah, I'm like,
whatever.
I'm going to learn all of it and pull what I need. And so I try to bring that to the students. So it's like I follow the technique of the studio, which already pulls from a lot of places.
Yeah.
And then it'll be like, okay, so, you know, next week is improv. It's funny because we just did like a month. We'll do like warm-ups at the beginning of class and then do their scenes. So we did like a month of like improv at the beginning. And, you know, I graduated from UCB, but it was like years ago. So I'm like, and then I studied other places. So I don't remember like what came from where really. But I was like, we're going to do like 4 classes in the beginning. We'll do improv. So it's like first one, we just did warm-ups. We did like 2-person scene exercises. We did all this. And then one of my students was like, this is so fun. I'm going to go like take a class at UCB. And she came in the other day. She's like, so I don't know if I told you, but I'm on week 3 right now. And she's like, so far, pretty much everything we've done, like we did in class. And I was like, oh, I don't know if that's good or bad, but I was like, well, it was all inclusive, I guess.
That's great.
But it's fun. I love it. And it's nice because it's the thing I love, but, you know, it's not about me.
Yeah.
There's no
yeah,
pressure
that's
on
so
it.
great.
Yeah.
Do you feel like this is like the outlet that you were looking for as far as giving back? Like it seems like that kind of falls in the same vein of like sharing the knowledge that you've been able to garnish and be able to help people on their journey.
It can be. I mean, you know, to be fair, it pays well, so it's not totally selfless. As far as part-time jobs go, it's pretty great. Like
Awesome.
A lot of my clients are Skype or come to my place. So in that sense,
Convenient.
It's like, yeah. I mean, I teach at the studio and stuff. But it's definitely not totally selfless. But there are times where I can tell I've really made a difference for somebody. Like, and they'll tell me.
Yeah.
They'll be like, and it's usually, I see my coaching as very collaborative. So, you know, it's not me being like, okay, here's what you need to do now. We figure it out together, you know? And I always want to see what people are bringing before I give them stuff too, because like I want to help them chisel out what they're already doing, which is the only way to be successful anyway. I'm not going to like feed it to them, you know?
Do you feel like that's important, like kind of putting your stamp on things, obviously within the world?
As a coach,
You mean
Or as
like
an
when you,
actor?
as an actor, like when you're coaching?
Yeah, for sure. Like, and I don't want my help with them to be visible. I mean, particularly with young actors because they have a harder time keeping their own voice in it.
Yeah.
But I always am like, I'm trying to, anytime I do coaching with people before they leave, I'm trying to like remove any evidence of it, you know?
Right.
Because I think when people do that, that's just ego. You know, I don't see myself ever opening my own acting studio because I'm like, I don't need to. Like, you know, it's not my ambition, but it's just like, I'm like, there's enough people doing that. And I'm not really saying something that they're not. But it is really great when people say to me, like, if it wasn't for that like aha moment that you like helped me get to, like, there's no way I would have gotten that job.
Yeah.
You know, and in other ways too, it's like, you know, a lot of my young clients are amazing and they've got like really supportive parents, and it's an interesting thing to see, you know, young people be that like self-possessed. But you do occasionally get the people that like are being pressured to do it, and they're feeling a lot of insecurity and a lot of grown-up worries that they shouldn't have. And it's like sometimes I'm more of a therapist too, and it's like for that hour I am more than happy to also be the voice that's like, hey, it's okay if you don't want to do this, like, you know, I will help you, or like, let's see if we can find a way for this to be fun for you and make this more about like this experience and this character than like if you get this job or disappoint somebody or something, you know. So I try to balance that out for people too. I definitely put more into it than is required of me, which my husband laughs and rolls his eyes at all the time because I'll be like, I'm for sure ending class early tonight. Like, I'm 100%. There's like 5 people going up tonight. Like, oh, we'll be done
for
so
sure
early.
Be done by 10
and then
or
like
whatever
45 minutes after like the time is, I'm like, I'm on my way home, and he's like,
Of course.
And I'm like, well, they need to talk. There's this, and it's like, you just can't just do your job. And I'm like, nope. Like, I can't.
Like, that is my job.
But it's great because it's always been my other thing. And acting has been my main source of income for probably about 7 or 8 years, I would say. And so there are definitely times where the side income from acting and coaching is more important or less important.
Right.
But I think partly because it's never been something I needed. It's great. It also gives me the privilege to be like, I don't really enjoy working with you, so maybe someone else would be better for you.
Like, I can recommend you to somebody else, maybe, or find somebody else.
And you know what? And sometimes it's me. Like, I think just like anything, it's just like dating. Like, you know, you can be a great actor and I can be a great coach, and we might just not be a good fit for each other.
Yeah.
But I think that's helped it stay so joyful for me, is because I'm like, I'm doing this because I want to. I could be doing other things. You know, and so I really do get like fulfillment out of it. Some days I'm an acting teacher, some days I'm camp counselor, some days I'm a mom, some days I'm a buddy, some days I'm just there to laugh at people who just aren't confident that they're funny yet. You know what I mean?
Right.
Do you feel like having your groove and like, are there still things that you feel that you are intentional about with the business side of like acting? Because, you know, one of the things that we always like to focus on, not necessarily on every episode, but one of the things that we've really kind of like considered when we started this podcast was like, you know, acting is a business, and there's it's show business. And, you know, a lot of times we get caught up in the theatrics of it all, or we get caught up in like the art, but we don't want to bother people. But now that you're more established, and not to say that you still don't need, you know, wisdom or reaching out for questions or whatever, but like, do you feel that you have, and even Kevin, like things that you're doing regularly or quarterly or whatever to do housekeeping of what your business is outside of like, I'm not talking like money, like accounting, but like, you know, your marketing, your brand, like just stuff like that.
Well, I mean, you know, I try to ask people as much as possible because I feel like actors spend so much time making decisions about what works that actors do, even when their audience is other people. Like, they're always acting, oh yes, postcards work so great. But they're not asking casting directors usually and stuff that. They're asking other actors. Like,
very good point.
You know, and
very
I'm
good
just
point.
like, I don't know that that's really your audience. Same thing with audition questions. Like, is it okay to do this or this in an audition? Like, ask one casting director instead of 10 actors. You know what I mean?
Right.
That's my favorite life lesson. It's like, if someone's giving you advice on like how to get the job or how to like fish and get the fish, and they've never caught a fish themselves, it's like, maybe I shouldn't be.
Examine your source. And I learned that early on, because when I was getting one of those background vouchers to join the union. And I was doing background work, and I remember it was at the Warner Brothers Ranch, and I was so excited, and I got an audition while I was there, and I was like working on it, and there was some like generous extra who was real experienced, who wanted to like give me advice on my audition. And I remember even at that like state of things, there was one moment, I forget what the audition was, but this was not an appropriate thing. And I just remember he like rolled on the floor, like, you should do this. And I just remember being like, I don't think he knows what he's talking about.
Like that wouldn't be right.
Yeah. So a lot of things I did early on, I don't do now, because there are things where I'm like, if that makes you feel good, like, do it. But it's sort of like playing penny slots versus like something else. Like, your odds of hitting, I just don't think are great when you do like postcards and stuff. And it's funny because in addition to coaching, I do a lot of career counseling too.
Do you?
Yeah, and so people come in all the time.
I might be hitting you up, girl.
Do it.
I didn't
Maybe
know
that'll
that.
be your baby present.
I know, right? I'll be like, listen, I need some tips.
And so it's a lot of goals, and then people asking me, stuff like this. And I don't pretend to be an expert, but I share like, here's what's worked for me. Here's what's worked for other people. Here's where I think the business is going. Here's where, if you have this, like, we'll talk about like, how much are you wanting to invest right now? Let's look at what areas, where would your money go furthest,
Totally.
And so I don't do things like postcards and things like that. And it's all totally individual. But I've found, I think the two things that have been most helpful to me are, because I've been out here for a while now, and I know a lot of people, I get asked to do a lot of things like this podcast, or things like a play reading or whatever. And I've learned, like, just say yes to stuff unless I have a good reason to say no, because and then don't get attached to an outcome for them, because it's just like, you just don't know. Like, I've met people at things where it's been so many degrees removed that it's led to something else, and whether it's just like a friend, another opportunity, whatever, like, it's never gone badly. So a lot of stuff has come from me saying yes to things that don't seem like they're related to things.
Right.
That's
so
so funny.
I say yes to everything, unless, there are times in my life, like after my son was born, where I was just like, I'm saying no to like everything for a while.
I 100% agree. You got to take care of yourself too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then for me, I've had a lot of luck with like workshops. Because a lot of people do workshops, like casting director workshops, when they first come to town. There aren't as many people at them that like have worked a lot, and and I know people are of two minds with workshops, like, oh, you shouldn't pay to meet casting directors. Like, I'm like, fine, cool, don't, like, that's fine. And the places I've gone, it's been very education focused, and everybody's very careful now, and
especially.
Yeah, especially I know. And I say that to my students too, because they'll be like, about workshops, and I'm like, look, everybody who's got a reason to hate them is right, and everybody who loves them has got, so make up your own mind. I'm like, for me, they've been very successful, especially because a lot of times I'll target like casting directors who are casting things like shows I've already been on. So I feel like I'm kind of an easy sell, because I'm like, here, look, watch me do a scene like you cast. You don't even have to take a chance on me. Like, I've already been on all these procedurals, much like your procedural. So perhaps you just bring me in for an audition at your convenience.
Right.
And so those have actually turned out pretty well.
That's
and then
awesome.
just trying to, I've always said in this business, like, you can't bulk because of spending money. Like, even if you just got headshots, but you need new headshots, then you better find the money to get the headshots, because a lot of people just waste months. Yeah. And every time I do a thing that I know I need to do, whether it's a class or whatever, it jumpstarts me. Like, I get growth in my career. With every class I take, with every time I do get my new headshots. I do know people who literally just get headshots all the time to get new headshots. And I'm like, they look the same as that. Like, I don't understand.
Like, is there some strategy
just
here?
Headshots is like not the point. But if I know there's a change I need to make or a thing that's there, I'm doing it tomorrow. Yeah. Like, if somebody's like, your voice needs work, I'm like, I'm calling that voice guy tomorrow. And I think that speeds everything up. Like, when you make that stuff go fast. Yeah. And it's tough because money, but I definitely invest in my career. Like, even just for example, like, I now have bangs again. I've had bangs so many times in my life, but I didn't for like a couple years. So when I got bangs, I really need a new headshot. So I was like, doing it. Like,
I love your new shots, by the way.
Oh, thank you. But I've been a little bit lazy on I need to get my reel updated, especially because I did this movie over the summer, and like the director and producers were talking about how many offers they give out based on people's reels on their IMDb page. And they were like, if
And
we
you're
pull
like-
up 5 people that we have in mind and like one has tape, that person will usually get it because we're just like, yeah, I mean, yeah. And I'm like,
You're like, I need to jump on that.
oh, because they were like, we love this clip of yours from something. And I'm like, oh my gosh, like, because my stuff's really outdated on it. So I'm in the process of updating all that. But yeah, I would say saying yes to things and then moving fast on things have been the 2 things that I think.
Yeah, I think
make it
so many
different.
times it's like you have your materials are your tools, right? Your headshots or your reel or voiceover reel or whatever it is that you have,
Mm-hmm.
and sometimes it's just like, but like really that's your that could be your moneymaker in the sense of like opportunity, or it's like if you have headshots from 6 years ago, it's like, okay, well, maybe it's time for new headshots. Even
Yeah.
if that one picture is the one that gets you in all the time, it's like you could be missing a category or 2 that you don't have because that one picture isn't like relaying that or message. or
Yeah,
whatever.
and I think it's also just like having people that like will tell you the truth, so you
Yeah.
can ask, so you do know where to do it. Because if somebody, you know, like it's the same thing. I know actors that use getting new headshots as their crutch, where it's like, okay, that's not. It makes them feel like they're doing something,
Right.
Or actors who stay in an acting class all the time, where it's like that's great, but like you're not really meeting anyone anyway. So it's sort of like, you know,
So
not
true.
telling yourself stories about, you know what I mean? Like you got to just face the truth all the time and just be like constant, you know? And
Yeah.
and just trying to be relentless in that, you know?
just being self-aware and like being honest, I guess, with yourself and like
And if you know you're not self-aware, get a group of people around you that you can
That,
trust.
yeah, that
you
you can too,
trust.
because I've realized like it just takes us a long time to get things done.
Yeah.
That usually do a big thing. So it's like if we can get the things done fast, whether it is getting the new headshots or updating stuff, then like usually everything else happens faster too. And I notice that around me, like there's a lot of people where it just takes them longer to sign up for the class, to get the new headshots, to sign up for the workshops, you know, than it does me. And I think that maybe slows their whole treadmill down.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
And my friend and I, so there's something I did with my students, like, I don't know, a year ago, and I would give them goal buddies, and like they'd set like some professionally related goal, and it could just be loosely related,
Yeah.
you know, like read a play or see an Oscar winning movie, or like, you know, call SAG to figure out this. It could have lunch with their manager, anything they decided. And they'd set it that week, and then they had to check in with each other in that week. And then the next class, they'd like report back, like we both did our goals and we talked, whatever. And I was like, I don't know if that'll be effective for them, you know, but it was. And then like there was a while when I weren't there, and when I was out of town, and you know I wasn't teaching, and they were just like, we need our goals back, you know.
Right.
that's so
And it
it's
was, like-
accountability.
Yeah. And so my friend and I, like recently, I was like, so this might sound crazy, but like, would you be my goal buddy? And like maybe we meet like every 2 weeks. And for us, I'm like, it doesn't always have to be acting, because like sometimes I need to like make my doctor's appointment.
Right,
or,
right.
You're like,
know,
sometimes
for
I need
one,
to call that
it
phone
was like
bill.
sign my child up for a sport. You know what I mean? And she was great. She was like, yeah, I'm down. And so like every 2 weeks on Thursdays, we like get together and do that.
I
But
love
I
that.
realized knowing, and also she's like so hyper, like I know every time we meet, she will be done with everything she said.
So it
that
makes you feel like you
Yeah.
need to be
Oh,
So
done.
like
goodness.
Wednesday, the day before, I'm like, I better just find the time. But
Yeah.
it's great because like you just don't realize how long it can take you to send an email
Yeah.
or to like call and sign yourself up for something. You
Especially
know,
if you're afraid
Totally
of
true.
calling, right?
especially if you're afraid
Totally
of calling.
true.
Like if you can't just, you know, do it online.
Do you have a favorite resource? Like if you were to boil down, like my resource as an actor is I love this website or this book or this conversation that I watch over and over. Is there like one resource that's like, I'm an actor, I want to move to LA, I want to do this thing, I want that resource, and that's going to be my entrance?
That's a good question. And actually, a lot of my like career consultation clients have been actors who are either transitioning here from another market or from theater to here, or like for some reason I've gotten a lot of models who like want to start acting careers, to the point where now I have like my model talk, you know, where I'm
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
okay, so you have this and this and this experience. And so I'm always trying to like pull stuff at them. So it's like, you know, I think there's a lot of places where it's still hard to get good training. So, but now there's not as many excuses. Like I said, I have all these Skype clients. Like I have clients everywhere,
Yeah.
you know, which is great. So it's like, I think if people know they're going to move here and they're not here yet, like start that early. Like get yourself a coach that's in a market you want to be in.
Yeah.
And then you're getting the same as the people that are there, you know? And then as far as like books, because I learn a lot from books, and it's
You
also
do. You're in a
cheap-
book club.
I started a book club.
And you have a,
you
and you have a
did.
book Instagram. This is the
That's
thing.
right. I'm
Yeah.
a big time bookworm. I mean, I'm named from a book. Both my kids are named from a book. Kevin, my husband's a weirdo. He doesn't have a book. Well, we learned we need to talk about Kevin where he's a sociopath. So I think he just rejected that. We're going with like he doesn't have a book. But especially before I moved to LA, like where am I going to learn stuff? So
Right.
like, and I always tell people like books are a cheap way to like begin an education.
Yeah.
So, you know, I mean, like UCB's got a book now. They didn't when I was there, but like Michael Wilson, the studio where I study, like he's got The Work of an Actor, which is a great kind of like tangible thing.
Is he brunette? Does he have dark hair? Does he wear glasses? Okay, I think I had his book or have
And
it.
it was like a black book. Yeah.
Yes.
And then like he was a protege of Larry Moss, and so The Intent to Live, Larry Moss's book, was a go-to for me. I mean, now it's like I kind of have them hardwired into my brain, so I don't
Right.
really pick them up much. For comedy, I like Scott Sedita's 8 Characters of Comedy. I'm very much a person where I'm like, it's fun to read philosophy. Do you know what I mean?
Right,
But
right.
like not real helpful when you're trying to figure out how to use it. So I felt like all those
Yeah.
gave me like practical, tangible things. It's an oldie, but Audition by Michael Shurtleff, I think, is like a great book about, you know,
I have that one.
the business. Yeah, like it's a good standby. You know, and then I think like just accountability, like, you know, a lot of those
Yes.
self-help books, like The Power of Habit, you know, things like that I think are just good. All of those like what are they? The like Malcolm Gladwell
The
book.
Outliers, the 10,000 hours.
Tipping Point. And then also what's the other one that's
4-hour work week.
no, yeah, that one's great too. But no, I'm thinking, what's the other guy who, Stephen Pressfield, like Do the
Yes.
Work.
Yeah.
Yes, I
Yeah.
think we have it.
I mean, and you know what? Like,
we
people make fun
turning-
of me, but I am a huge fan of like all of the For Dummies and Idiots Guide books, because I'm like, you can become kind of a mini expert on all kinds of things. Like,
Right.
people are basically say, hey, I'm writing this book so that you can get all the information you can get from a book about this topic.
Yeah.
So like, I've learned a lot that way, you know, and like, I've played Amish a couple times. I bought like the Idiot's Guide to the Amish, you know?
That's amazing.
Yeah. So it's like, I don't know. People use lack of access as an excuse a lot. And
Yeah.
I'm like, there is no
It's
lack
an
of
excuse.
access.
I feel like that is
And
an excuse, especially with the
another,
internet.
like the library, you know?
Yeah.
You don't even have to go to the library anymore. You can get everything online there.
Audiobooks.
And like, I tell my students all the time, I'll be like, you need to learn, I can't afford a dialect coach. I'm like, do you know that like the LA library has every single dialect workbook and CD that you can check out? Like, you can pick any dialect you want. You could do proper British, Cockney, Massachusetts, Kennedy-esque. Like, so I'm like, there are just no excuses. Like, that's my thing.
That's the work, though, and sometimes people
No
don't
excuses.
want to do it.
It's like, yeah, exactly. I'm like, you're in a car. It's your business whether you're listening to a podcast on the way to Santa Monica, or whether you're listening to the dialect CD, or whether you're running lines, or,
yeah,
you know.
totally.
It's also so difficult if you're not the personality of Type A, where you do get things done. It's difficult in the situations. I think maybe that's why a lot of us actors can struggle with these areas of like, hey, I know what to do. Talking about the treadmill. I'm not running fast on that treadmill, because it's so hard to have the outcome, because it is so different, right? So if I was a lawyer, I would know that if I go to this school and I spend this many hours and I pass this many tests, then I'm going to be able to pass the bar and I'm going to be able to get a job. And it's like
that ladder.
it's that ladder, and a lot of the work is such like internal work on your skill set, and also putting yourself in a position to where if someone were to see you, you have all the materials. But it's the if is so hard to tackle, where it's like, okay, so I do headshots again. What if it's a waste of money?
Yeah. Well, and see, those
You
are
know?
the people I've noticed that get jaded and they burn out, because
Yeah.
that's the thing in this business. You can't base anything on outcome at all.
Love that.
I love
so
that,
it's
yeah.
like maybe they try a workshop and they're like,
Oh,
oh, that
that's what I
didn't
was
turn
trying to
into
say.
anything. That casting
Yeah.
director never called me in. The stuff they were answering, I already knew. Then they're probably not going to do that anymore. Maybe they went and did a free short film over the weekend and they were like, oh, like I didn't even get anything good for my reel or whatever. Well, it's like then they're attached to outcome. They're going to stop. Like you just have to say yes, like a crazy person over and over again.
I love that.
But it's like, yeah. And then not think about the outcome, because I always think of it as like a boat with like a wake on the water. Do you know what I mean? It's like all that stuff. If you make your wake giant, like it's going to catch stuff.
Oh,
it's
I
not
love that.
necessarily going to be like
That maybe
what
that
you
one
planned,
thing, right?
But like it's going to be so big that like stuff has to get caught up in it, you know. And it's like in every other business, it's like there's a training schedule, and so
Right.
for me, I like the comfort of knowing that. So like early on, I did things where, like I said, it was so silly because I didn't know what to do. So it's like I had my little lists, and you know, I'd watch these certain movies, and were those things needed? Not necessarily, but they made me feel like I was taking control and like I was doing something. And then over the years, I found things that are effective. But it's like, you know, yeah, we're actors, but it's like we don't have an instrument that we have to practice a certain number of days, and you know, or a certain number of hours a day, or you know, we're not dancers where we do that. Like we have our thing that we, you know, you wouldn't ever dream of only dancing at your auditions. Like you'd be horrible and out of shape. But like actors act like that, you know.
So true.
And so like if you look at it from the like athletic point of view, where it's like nutrition, mental agility, muscle, and you really like make your thing that way, then it's not about the outcome. It's about like your responsibility of being like a well-oiled machine, you know. So it's like I'm gonna take these classes because it keeps me sharp.
Yeah.
I'm gonna do, you know, for me, workshops actually my biggest goal is because they make me really nervous. And I just feel like I'm constantly auditioning, and then I have to face feedback, which we don't often get in auditions.
Right.
And so
Yeah.
if I'm able to do that comfortably, then I feel auditions are like no big deal to me.
It's not so much like a
Yeah, exactly. And so there's a lot, basically in a lot of these things I do, there's a lot of good things that can happen and no bad things that will come from them. So it's already a win. And then if others, you know what I mean? It's
Totally.
like, but if I was
Yeah.
waiting to be like, this causes this, I would have quit a long time ago.
And I think that that's such a great like perspective shift, because I think even in life, the minute that we start putting, because I think about even our marriage, the minute that I start putting expectations on him that might not be fair for like outcome, like there's now like an opportunity for resentment or bitterness because you didn't fulfill my expectation or the outcome because I did this thing. It's like do it because you need to do it. I don't know if that makes any sense.
Yeah. And then also the same thing, just like marriage, just like handling yourself.
Yes.
Like, you know, not counting on other people to do it for you. Like,
Right.
you know, I know people like that with like their agents and managers and their husbands and wives, you know, where it's just like, you know, in the same, I mean, it's awful to put it this way, but like, you know, our agents get 10% of what we make. So doesn't that mean that we should be doing 90
No,
or 80%?
I've said that
of it?
so many times.
And
yes.
like, but also in marriages, like, you know, our spouse isn't supposed to be like, I love, sure, it's a cute idea to be like, now we're one, now we share life, but it's like that's not necessarily the healthiest approach all the time. Is it's like,
But what
how
is that
about
exactly?
if we're two full people having full lives that overlap with each other's lives? So
Yeah.
it's like I'm not depending on you to take care of my happiness. I'm not
Right.
depending on you to understand what I need
Or to
without
complete me.
like me communicating it. Like I'm gonna do my thing, and then you add some cool stuff on top, and then vice versa. And then when we need each other, like there are those moments.
Yeah, it's a partnership.
Yeah, but I feel like people's philosophy for business and life, you know what I mean? There tends to be a lot of overlap there. And I'm not saying like I'm a winner at that all the time, you know?
Totally.
But like that's what I aim for,
Right.
you know? Because, you know, I mean, like Kevin and I have the same arguments and issues everybody else does. And it's usually a sign that that balance is out of whack a little bit,
Right.
you know? And same thing in this business. I mean, I think it was last year sometime I just got, you know, we all go through it, but like I think that was the closest I got to just in a long time to being like, I don't know if I can keep doing this.
Yeah.
Because like,
That's how I feel right now.
yeah, I mean, you know, and like it sucks being a woman because and having kids, because it's like, you know, both of my kids, it's the amount of time I took off, you know,
Yep.
while I looked pregnant, while I was recovering from it, and then just getting my momentum back to where I was. And like some of that's psychological. Like granted, there's casting directors who I probably would not have even seen in the frequency of time, because like even though they like
Right,
me, maybe I
right.
would have only seen them once a year anyway.
Right.
But just that, you know,
It's a mental thing, too.
man, yeah. And it's like, you know, it's I mean, it's just frustrating. Like there's highs and there's lows, and I think it was last year. I just had a slow year. Just had a slow year, you know? And there's that confusion because I was like, I don't feel like I'm doing anything differently. And if there is some little shift, I don't understand. That's even scarier because it's like, is there something so small that I could be doing that could change things? You know what I mean? It's terrifying.
Totally.
You start questioning everything, like hair.
And that's not good.
And like, yeah, I know. And like voice, you're just like, am I talking? Like, I don't, you know what I mean? And then like this year, I'm just working more. I couldn't tell you like what the difference was. Like, I definitely refound it. Like, that was a nice thing about getting back into class. I hadn't been in a class consistently for a while. I had just been wearing my teacher hat so much.
Yeah.
And being around other people and, you know, having people whose expertise that I like value that were like, hey, you're doing it well. Like, you know, and I do think when you find joy in it again, that affects the outcome.
Totally.
But yeah, it, you know, it was rough and like, yeah, I'm feeling good now, but like, I'm not delusional. I know how this goes. Like, it goes up and down, up and down.
That's the nature of the beast,
the
you guys.
longer you've been doing it, you've got more residuals at least coming in for the down times or
Right.
whatever. But like,
It's
yeah,
such
tough.
an interesting journey to be okay, like to be able to prepare yourself to be okay during like, or here's what I want to say, to be disconnected from the outcome
Yeah.
to where you're happy in all circumstances. You know what I mean? Because
Yeah.
it's like, if it is driven by I didn't book that thing or I didn't do the thing or I didn't have the result that I wanted, then in the times where you're not booking a lot or you don't have a lot of work coming your way, you're sad.
Yeah.
And then the times that you got that giant residual come in, you're happy. And then the time that residual runs out, you're sad.
And you have no control over it. You're totally at the mercy of that. Well, and that's one thing, like at the beginning of every class that I teach, I always have students celebrate wins. And like, I have to remind them, like, not just the wins, like the job or whatever, but like the wins you have control over.
Yeah.
And it's so cool because like they get it now. So they come in. And so like one of my students, you know, like a couple weeks ago, well, and then it leads us to how those kinds of wins that we can control lead to the wins that we can't control. So like a couple weeks ago, my student was like, you know, I'm always so afraid of doing the wrong thing in auditions. And so like I'll have ideas, but I won't do them because it'll be like different and I'm worried about it. And so she was like, I got the self-tape last week and I just felt like I'm going to play music in the background because it made sense that it was happening in the scene. She's like, and normally I wouldn't, but like, you know, I was like, I'm going to try it because this is my tape. And she felt strongly that it was appropriate and all that. It was her, you know, it wasn't like she was copying somebody's idea. And I was like, good for you. Like, it was yours. You did that and you felt good about it. She was like, yeah, even my agents were like, we don't know about that or whatever. But like, she booked it. And
No
like,
way.
that's not what her win was though, which was so great because the win came later. And, you know, and the same thing happened to me recently. And because I will often like give them a win to be like, here's an example, you know?
Yeah.
And so like, I was teaching a couple weeks ago in a different class than I teach every week. And it doesn't end until 11. And it takes me about an hour to get home. And while I was in class, I got this big audition for the next day.
Oh boy.
And I was like, well, what am I going to do? Like, what are my options here? And I went home and I printed that thing at midnight. And it wasn't super complicated. Like, I probably could have tried to clear time and worked on it the same day. You know, it was at like 4 p.m. But I know I don't work well that way. So I printed it at 12 and I worked on it till 2 because I was like, I would normally give this 2 hours before and I had to get up, you know, at 6:45 with the kids for school. But I was like, I'm either doing this or I'm doing it. Like, I'm just, you know, and I did. And I was so proud of myself because it was just an audition that went the way that I wanted it to because of that. Whereas otherwise, maybe it was a variable.
Right.
And I was just proud of myself because I was like, I made that choice and I wasn't complaining about it. I did it. I got what I wanted from it. I stuck by it. And you know what? I did. I booked that job. Like,
that's awesome.
So like I maybe wouldn't have, but it would have been a win anyway.
Do you know what? It's awesome because it's also, you can look at, like, one of the things that we're working through is like, Judah gets up at 6:30 every morning, 6:45. And it's like, that's our new normal in the sense of like, it's not normal, but the chaos of like, we are just, I think, do we talk about this at the Labor Day poll? Like, it's like, be ready to just be always tired.
Yeah.
Like, you're just like always tired. And
Well,
I mean,
and
your
it's
kids
like-
are a little older, but
There's no right or wrong with it. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? So it's just like, that's the thing that I tell my students with that. I'll be like, you're totally justified if you've had a long week and you didn't have time to do what you wanted to with it. But you're also the only person who suffers. So like, it's up to you. Like
Right.
that's a valid excuse, and then be happy with that. Like that's what I've chosen.
Right.
But if not, like, you know, do it. And like when, you know, my older son, when he was born, I mean, we were scraping by, and like we were young. I wasn't really established yet. Kevin had not even really, I mean, he kind of started acting. I don't think he'd worked at all yet. And
Right.
like, you know, he was waiting tables and finishing college. And like, the only time I had to work on stuff was like in the middle of the night. And so I was like, no one would blame me for like quitting this. Like, no
Yeah.
one would. It totally makes sense.
Yeah.
But I was like, what do I want? And so I would just choose 3 or 4 hours of sleep because I knew like tomorrow could be the one, you know?
Yeah, and I think that looking at it like that versus being it's like once you start like that choice, it's going to be so much quicker before you either become jaded, resentful, or like you end up just
Quit entirely.
because you
Yeah.
can only do like you told your student. It's like, okay, well, you were tired, and if that's what you chose, then at least be content with that decision because you chose that.
Right.
Like even if it wasn't the best thing for you, because if you're damned if you do and you're damned if you don't. So it's like if you're tired and you're complaining that you're tired because you had to stay up and you only slept 3 hours, then your attitude is going to be just kind of shitty for the audition and everything else because
Right.
you had to. It's like, but it's a choice. So be thankful that you chose that.
Well, and there's so many things in this
I don't know.
business that are just out of your hands. So I'm like, control the things that you can. And you know, I learned that early on. It's like just don't even think about it. Like if you can look at it kind of with like a childlike point of view and be like, I'm just gonna throw things at the wall and see what happens. Like when I first moved here, they were doing the remake of Fame. Do you remember when they did that?
Yep.
And like I got called in and I read for it a couple times, and I had these amazing auditions, like where they were just like, wow, like just what you would dream of. And it was like this big casting office, you know, and I was like, yeah, you know, this is great. And at that point they weren't sure if they were going to hire, how skilled you had to be at things, because they didn't have a director yet.
Right.
And so I was auditioning for like one of the main girls that was a dancer. So I go in a few times, and then they sent me for my dance audition. And it was like, and I remember, I got it. I was at my family reunion or it was like a wedding anniversary party in Virginia. I had flown to Kentucky, driven with my friend to Virginia when this audition came in.
Oh boy.
And it was for a 2-minute technical ballet routine on point in LA, like 4 days later. And I was like, I had danced point when I was 9. I danced in college, but like ballet is something you really got to keep up with.
Yeah, not
I certainly
technical
was not.
point.
No.
Yeah.
But I was like, they have invited me and I will go. And I went to town in Virginia. I went to a dance store. I bought point shoes. I like did because I have really weak ankles too. So I did everything I could to like build them up. I watched everything I could. I found a friend back in Kentucky whose mom worked for an airline who we could go standby together. So she agreed to go with me so I could come. So we flew out here. I rented space at like Debbie Reynolds dance studio, and I went there all day, every day. And I choreographed myself a 2-minute point routine to Tiny Dancer by Elton John. And like, I went to this thing, and it's all like professional ballerinas and classical music, definitely not Elton John. And I was like, and it was and I knew like the audition was going to be there too. For some reason, it was in a room where the floor was also really slippery. So like anytime I started to go fully on point, like I was falling, and then the power went out. And so I had to like sit there and wait. And like, there's that little part of me that's like, maybe it shouldn't go back on, do you know?
Yeah, yeah.
And I had just like left my family, like all this stuff. And I was just like, whatever. And I went for it, and it was maybe 40% as good as like my best that I had on my own. But man, did I like pour myself into it, you know? I did not book that role. They hired a dancer.
Shit proud that
But you know what happened? Months later, I get this call, and they were like, my manager was like, "Do you want to like go work a day on Fame?" And I was like, "Yes." Why? And he was like, "Well, casting called, and they were like, hey, we have this like really tiny little part. You know, we don't know if she wants to do it." And they were like, and we're not even sure like how we got her name, but there's just like a post-it on our desk that's like, hey, if you guys see a space anywhere for this girl, like put her in there.
Oh, that's awesome.
And I was just like, that could have happened other times in my life and there was no spot and I didn't know it. So I'd much rather believe that like, because I've behaved like that like my Post-its on some people's desks and I may not know. That wasn't my business to know. I might have gotten that job and never known that.
Right.
But that was enough for me to be like, hey, the universe pays attention to that stuff. It didn't matter that it was good. That was not why they called me in. They called me in because they were like, she was not messing around. Like, look at her.
She freaking came and gave it all she got.
I was not good. Maybe I was cute. Maybe I was funny. But like, I was not good. There's no way. But
I can attest to that.
How many girls do you think just turned that down? Probably a lot.
Especially if they're out of town or.
I mean, and now there are times where I turn stuff like that down because I know like that's a requirement. That's the first step.
Yeah.
Out of respect for you guys, I'm gonna be clear in that that's not my skill set.
But that's different.
And they didn't know. So I was like, well, while they're still figuring it out, you know. So that was young me, and I like look up to her, and so I still try to like I don't do it as well, but I'm like I don't know what you were like drinking at that age that like gave you that like gusto.
I'm gonna just do it,
but I try to act like her, do you know? Because it worked.
And with all of our guests, we do like to do as we kind of wrap it. I feel like we can talk all night, but I want to respect your time. We have a couple of questions we ask right at the end.
It's fun. They're fun. They're fun ones.
There's 5 questions. Nan, take it away.
Great. Number 1. If you could be any animal, which animal would you be and why?
Which animal would I be? I guess that's hard. I guess like a wild horse, because like I don't want people to ride me. Like I think of it from a very practical point of view. I'm like I'd like to live for a good amount of time in horses. You know what I mean?
Yes.
And I don't want to be ridden, but I like to ride around. I mean, if we're gonna get like fantasy level, then I'd be like a Pegasus. So then I could also fly.
That's amazing. You can totally choose
then
Pegasus.
I'd be a flying horse.
Great. I love it. That's awesome. Number 2, if you can only eat one food for the rest of your life, what would it be?
Probably French fries.
Oh, girl.
Like I love sushi, but like that's gonna get old after a day or two. But like I could kind of always eat French fries pretty much all the time.
Is any place in particular?
McDonald's.
What? Really?
I love their fries.
When I was a kid, I hated McDonald's fries.
Really? No one's perfect.
Yeah. Now, if they're done right. I really like a good waffle fry, which, those can be hard to find. But like in Kentucky, there's a lot of good options for crinkle fries.
Oh,
like
girl.
Gold
Like
Star
the-
chili. No, like, you know what I mean? Just like the wrinkly ones.
Oh, yeah.
Look like a little like accordion.
Yes.
Like Gold Star there has them in like White Castle, which is just wrong in so many ways, but their fries are really good.
Oh gosh. Okay, great. So
I love it.
awesome. If you can have if you could either be any superhero or have a superpower, which would it be?
Superpower. I've always loved, I wish it's not really a superpower, or if it is, it'd be very useless, but I always thought it'd be amazing if I could just watch any memories that I've had in my whole life. Do you know what I mean? Like a movie. Like I would love to just be able to
instant playback.
Yeah.
But in high def.
Like it's like, cause it's like if you think of memories from when you're like little and stuff, it's like you only remember bits and pieces.
Of course.
Like, and to see the whole picture, like who else was there? Like how many people did you not know? You know what I mean? When you talk to people and you're like, oh my gosh, we were probably totally there at the same time.
Yeah.
Like how cool would it be if you could just go back and like watch the footage?
That's a good idea for a script.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I know. Maybe we'll write that
Yeah,
down.
maybe
Or
we should.
it could be very creepy because who's filming it, right?
Or that. It could be some like weird.
I was like, we're going dystopian again. But
just so you know.
I always thought that would be like really cool to just
That
be
is
able
cool.
to play it back, like for real. Like how satisfying would that be to just play back some of those like childhood memories for real?
That would be actually really cool because I know I have half memories of a lot of stuff.
Yeah, or the ones that you exhausted. We all have those memories that we've like worn out.
Yeah,
and you leave out a lot. But if you could actually just like watch back, like I would like that.
Awesome.
Good power.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Celebrity crush.
Oh my gosh. That's a tough one, man. I don't even remember his name in real life because it's more of his character. But Jamie from Outlander, the like Scottish Highlander guy.
Yeah.
Do you know who that
I can't
is?
remember his.
What's his name? It doesn't matter.
We're gonna have to
It
look him up.
doesn't
I will look him up
Outlander.
later.
Sam something.
Yes.
Sam something. But it's not really relevant. Like I don't ever actually want to meet him in real life because it's really Jamie.
Yeah, you're like, it's more the character than it is the actor.
Yeah, it's more Jamie. Like, he's up there.
That's awesome. Now I'm curious. I'm going to have to look this up after.
Yeah,
And
highly recommend Outlander. You guys should watch it. It's a great show to watch together.
oh,
Guilty
Good.
pleasure.
okay.
Good
Awesome.
idea. We know what we're doing tonight.
Yeah. Now that, okay, so if you were not an actress or you were not in this industry, what else could you see yourself doing?
I've thought about that through my lows of my career many
Right.
times, right? I love to write, but I don't know that that's what it would be. But I think in a heartbeat, I would be a teacher if they were paid better.
Yeah.
Because I think it's just insane that I can afford to be an actor, but I literally I could not afford to become a teacher, and live in my house, you
Yep.
know?
Yeah, that's crazy.
And I've looked into it. I looked into it at different times when things were slow, and I was, thinking about what I might do,
like,
if I
what?
don't do this anymore. And it's just a shame. And it's like, like my kids have a really amazing teachers, and I like look at them and wonder, because I'm like, it has to be like half calling, because
Yeah.
they're such intelligent, caring, articulate people that I'm like, you could definitely be doing something you'd be making more money for and working less hours. So I'm so thankful for them. And I just guess I don't have that, but it also makes me think like how many people would be wonderful teachers if they were paid a little bit better,
Totally.
It's a good
Totally.
answer. And I know I said 5, but I always like to follow
He
it
has
up
this
with
bonus
one
question.
more. If you were listening to this when you first started,
Yeah.
and you had one piece of advice to share with yourself or anyone else listening, what would it be?
Oh, that's a good one. Honestly, it's something that I've just found more and more every year, I think. And that's just that, like, if you're going to do this, and you probably are, because you're already have realized, like, that's it. You're called to it, whatever.
Yeah.
I've struggled with this calling. Like, now I'm kind of like, okay, you're delusional. You're not doing anything else. Like, you can make it seem like you're not going anywhere else. But, I think I have realized that, like, all of it has to be the life that you wanted. Not just like the outcome or the show or the time when you can relax because you're starting to get offers or whatever. Like, that can't be the life that you want. Like, you have to love, because even if you get to that, it ebbs and flows.
Yep.
I have
Right.
friends who are on series number 3, and like they go a couple years without a job, because of
Yeah.
where they're at, because they're not going to do guest stars and stuff anymore. They're only doing those series regulars. And it's like, you have to fall in love with like this lifestyle. You
Yeah.
have to fall in, like, I have a hard time saying like loving auditioning because it's stressful, but like you have to love all of it. You have to love the fact that like you get to be here and do this, because there are people who can't or don't or won't. And so like
Yep.
all of this, like, my day now where it's like a commercial audition in Santa Monica, a pin for a show that may or may not go somewhere, teaching at night, running around, changing in my car,
Being a mom, being a wife.
being a mom, being a wife,
Doing podcast
acting
stuff.
ridiculous. Like some of these auditions where you're just like, what am I doing with my life? I am pretending to be a dancing turkey right now.
Literally.
Yeah. That like, if you can't love that part, you're not going to last. So it's like, you have to find a way to fall in love with that by surrounding yourself with like people who are doing it, by staying excited, by constantly learning. But if you're here for the other part, and I think we all start out that way, like you'll be miserable
sure.
because that part's so small,
Very
For
well
sure.
said. And one of my favorite things is celebrate the wins that you
Yeah.
can control.
I love it.
Such a good time together. Thank you for your time, for joining our podcast.
Where can people find you?
Yes.
They can find me on, social media. Gala Elf is like my Instagram and my Twitter, like GALAELF. I'm pretty active on there, and I'm pretty good at responding to people too.
That's awesome. And is there anything that you have recently that's coming out where people can watch?
Yeah, this summer I shot a movie called From the Heart that we're not able to announce yet, like where it's going to air and stuff, but I'll keep people posted. And that was starring my husband and I, coincidentally.
I love it.
So that was really great. My kids are even in it for a scene.
What?
Yeah, they are now Taft-Hart lead, which is weird because they're not actors. But yeah, so that's coming up, and
I love it.
I'm wrapping on a show right now, and I can't really talk about it just
Okay,
yet, but I'll
okay.
let you know.
And we'll make
But guess
sure to
what?
push that when it does.
Yes, and totally, if you follow her, you can stay up to date with what's going on and when things are going to air. So give her a follow and show her some love, y'all. Thank you so much for coming.
Thank you guys.
Thank
It's so
you,
much
guys.
fun.
All right.
See you
peace.
next week, guys.
Take care.